Hi. So my presentation is why are birds where they are, and I'm thankful for Vishnu and Pankaj to cover basically all of biogeography so that I can focus on what I have done my PhD on, which is more ecology based. The only biogeography over here is that I'll be focusing on two sky islands on either side of Palagar, which are biogeographic units in themselves. So Vishnu was talking about this paper, Robin's paper, 2017 or 2015, and he did talk about these two genera being discovered, and they were across the several sky islands of Western Ghats. But how are these birds distributed within these sky islands? That's the question that I was setting out to ask in my PhD. And more or less, I was looking at only two sky islands, the Nilgiris on the north of Palakkad Gap and Palani Annamalai Hills on the south of Palakkad Gap. So, as everyone knows, what Shola is biphasic mosaic. That would mean that there are two kinds of ecosystems over here. There's a grassland, as you can see. Yeah, grassland, and then you have forest, like kuti forest in between these grassland matrix. And each of these ecosystems have their own specialized species of birds. So the grasslands would have a Nilgiri pipit. Then you have, I've only shown 4 over here, but there are very particular forest specialist birds for these forests. So what happened in the last century is basically a lot of habitat modification. You had Shola grasslands, you had Shola forests, but then what happened was there was a lot of plantation of timber trees that happened, eucalyptus, acacia, pine. So, and then you had agriculture and tea plantation also taking over some parts of these Shola landscape. So basically, if you look at it, you'll find that there is a natural open habitat, which is the Shola grassland, a natural wooded habitat, which is the Shola forest. Then you have transformed open habitats, which is both agriculture and tea plantation. Then you have transformed wooded habitats, which is the tree stands of eucalyptus, acacia, and pine. So we have like 4 categories over here, just so that, yeah. So then, in this, we are looking at. So one of the transformation that we were looking at is invasion of these timber trees. Some of them like acacia, everyone knows wattle, and pine, and how the invasion happened. Basically, this is a sketch, an illustration that I made in the initial parts of my PhD. So basically, you have grassland over here, which is this light gray area. You have forest patches, which is slightly darker, and you have a stand of one of the trees, like the eucalyptus or the pine. Eventually, in a few years, before that, you have these contrasting edges. You have like very sharp edges of the forest and grassland. The forests are tall, woody, and you have grasslands which are open and plain. So, in a few years, what you see is the invasion has spread, and you can see how woody habitats are taking over an erstwhile open habitat. So you see, so very similar. You'll see that the forests are starting to look very, or at least the forests are starting to just merge with the wooded habitats, and the area of the grassland is reducing. And what you also see is the stark edge, the very sharp edge between the grassland and forest is becoming blurry. So you can see how the forest that is in between is kind of becoming a part of the plantations. So what happens then? You see some of the colonization of animals from the forest into the plantation. So the forest birds, which were not found on the grasslands, are now technically in the area where the grasslands were, so technically in the plantations, in the understory. And particularly these birds, like the Nilgiri pipit, the Shola killies, and the Nilgiri flycatcher. So all of these were forest birds, forest understory birds, and now in a past few decades, we have been seeing them in the understory of the plantations. So when the colonization of new novel habitats happen, so what happens is basically the species distribution alters, and as a hypothesis, we just assume that is basically because of the specialization, either the edge specialization, if the bird is more interior specialized or an edge specialized, or based on the diet, which is basically if the birds are more frugivorous or insectivorous. So the other thing that we were looking at is basically a lot of contrasting edges. Like I said, you had a sharp edge between the Shola forest and the Shola grassland, and then you have a very a blurry edge between say Shola forest and plantation. So over here you have low contrast edge between natural wooded, which is the Shola, and plantation, or low contrast edge between the grassland and probably a tea plantation. Whereas you have high contrast edge where you have edges which are very contrasting to each other. That could be several permutations possible between the plantation and the grassland tea plantation and forest and grassland tea plantation. So these variably contrasting edges were spread across the landscape, and that's what we're trying to see, how the birds are distributed across these edges. What we assumed was the native the native Shola birds would be more in the wooded habitats, but would be present in the transformed habitat, but less in numbers. Similarly, native grassland birds, which is the Nilgiri pipit, would be more in the grassland, would be present probably in the tea plantation, but less in number. Similarly, some species that are not fussy about their habitat, like the white eyes, which are possibly found in a lot of spaces, they might or might not increase in numbers in the transformed habitats. Yeah. So the main question over here is, how do we go about counting these birds? Like, how do you count a bird that is flying? I mean, that was the question that my auntie used to ask me, like, how are you going to the field and counting these birds? It's so difficult. I mean, so what we did was basically all this came down to models, like statistical models, where we look at like this much of canopy cover, 2 spoons of stream, or this much of forest cover, and you get like this perfect habitat for the bird. And that is what we were looking at. What is this perfect habitat for these birds that they are finding both in the forest and the plantation? So we looked at this statistical modeling framework called the occupancy modeling framework, where we look at both the occupancy of the species as well as the detection probability of the species. I'll explain why. So occupancy is basically the bird is present over there, and detection is basically the birder went over there and he was able to identify the bird. Like that the bird was present over there. So there are 2 probabilities. The birder could be inexperienced, the detection probability come down, or the birder could be, or basically there could be a lot of stream flowing nearby in the nearby, which gives off a lot of sound, so you may not hear the bird call. So that would reduce your detection probability. So both these probabilities were taken into account. And so like I said, the occupancy is basically whether the bird is present or not, and detection is basically based on the site variables, based on the observer's experience and stuff like that, where you're able to detect the bird or not. There's site level detection probability, which is basically dependent on the site variables, and then there's individual level detection probability, which is based on the observer himself or herself. So what we did was we selected a few birds, because it's not possible for us to do a thorough survey for all the birds of the woodland, of the Shola species that we have. So what we did was we had some criteria. So we selected 10 out of 250 birds, and the criteria basically, it should have small home range. It should not be large enough so that we are just like roaming around, and the larger the home range, it will be more difficult for us to find the bird. They should be understory, because the understory birds are the most or the first ones to tell us about any landscape change. Studies say that. Then non-migratory, we wanted resident birds. We want common and easily detected loud birds, attractive birds, stuff like that. And then we wanted woodland birds, obviously, forest birds. So out of 250, somewhere around 250 species, we came down to 10 species, plus one grassland species, which was done by which was done by one of my colleagues, Abhimanyu. So we had 10 species over here, out of which some of them are forest birds, some of them are open country birds, and one of them is a grassland bird. Some of them are habitat specialists, and two of them are habitat generalists. Then we have range-restricted birds and wide-ranging birds. Range-restricted would mean that they are only present in those parts of the world, whereas the wide-ranging, they're found in other parts of the world as well. Then we have, of course, the frugivorous bird and the insectivorous bird. We divided them in two categories. Then we also have edge specialists and forest interior specialists. We divided them in that category as well. So how did we go about? What was the field method? We selected areas just above 1400 meter, which we considered as the Shola Sky Island. So just above 1400 meter. Then the entire region that we selected was gridded in 100 meter by 100 meter. So that was the field. So out of which we selected 0.5% of those grids, and yeah, within those grids, we did a bird survey, but first we did a vegetation survey. I mean, all those round dots that you see is where the number of vegetation plots that we have in each of these grids. And there were larger plots where we looked at the trees, the species, blah, blah, blah. There were smaller plots where we also looked at the understory composition and structure of the plant, of the vegetation. And how did we do the survey? To just increase our detection probability, we also used playback of these birds. So each point we went, we played back the song of the bird, and then noted down number of birds that we saw in that particular plot. And we converted the count into occupancy, whether the bird was present or not. So basically that added up to around 1200 grid cells across Nilgiris and Palani Annamalai hills, which I think is like a enormous amount of work. I would not boast about my own PhD, but it took us about like 4 years to complete this, and about 60 interns and volunteers to complete this. So this also includes the points that were done in 2017 by Abhimanyu for Nilgiri pipit. So as you can see, there's natural open habitat, the Shola grassland, the natural wooded habitat, the Shola forest. Then there's transformed wooded habitat, which are the timber stands, and then there's transformed open habitats. So naive occupancy, which would basically mean we went to the plot, we saw the bird, so we saw the bird, and we just divided the number of cells that we saw the bird divided by the total number of cells we surveyed. So that is the naive occupancy. So basically, if we saw the bird in 5 cells and we had surveyed 10, so that naive occupancy becomes 50%. But what we also did was we just didn't go to the plot once. We went there 4 times at least. So each time would have a different probability. So that we went there is because it might happen that today it was a little cloudy or it was a little windy and the bird calls were not properly audible. So we went again tomorrow when the wind was a little down, and then we could probably hear the bird calls much better. So what happened was, today we may have found one bird, but we could not listen to the second bird calling. But tomorrow we might have gone and we found both the birds. So we now know that there are at least 2 birds over there, which we couldn't find today. I mean, yesterday, whatever. So basically that detection probability, when we take that into account, so that's why we require multiple replicates of a survey. So, but just looking at the naive occupancy, we see that the transformed habitats and the native habitats, the transformed is basically the plantation and native is the Shola forest, have very similar percentages. You can see like the vitae are almost everywhere, and most of them have very similar percentages. There's not very huge differences. But when we actually do the proper statistical analysis, what we find is, yeah, this is now going to take a little more. So when we look at low contrast edges, which is the edge that is lying between a forest and a plantation, what we see is some of the specialist birds the edge specialist birds, they all gradually go down into the timber plantation. They are high in the forest as usual. So could be like, 80% occupancy or something like that, but gradually go down as we go away from the edge into the plantations. Whereas the grassland birds, general species, they remain almost constant. When we look at high contrast edges, this is where the structure of the whole, the structure of the forest changes. So when you come from wooded areas to open habitats, what happens in the occupancy of these birds? So like you can see, the forest interior specialists, although so they are present in the edges, but you can see the numbers are drastically going down as you go away from the edge, this high contrast edge. But that doesn't happen to some of the edge specialist bird, but in general species also there is not much difference in the occupancy. But when you look at, similarly when you look at the grassland birds, the low contrast edge, that is the edge between two open areas, natural or transformed, like grassland or tree plantation, grassland or agriculture. It was basically, there was a sharp decline as at the edge. The bird wasn't usually found in the transformed open habitat. Similarly, high contrast edge, where you have grassland on this side, but wooded areas on the other side. Again, you see a sharp decline. The bird wasn't found in the wooded areas. And when we look, so this was the occupancy, whether the bird was present or not. But we also looked at the count of the bird, how many birds were present. That again shows some similar results, but not. So yeah, I mean, all the specialists and the generalists, yeah, some of them show constant numbers across these habitats, and some of them show a slight decline, but they don't generally show a difference between the edge specialization or something like that. But what we should note over here is the numbers are increasing when you have when you look at the generalist species. So when generalist species, when we look at them from wooded habitat to open habitat, their numbers are increasing. So basically all the generalist species are higher in open habitats and less in wooded habitat. So yeah, in conclusion, basically the forest specialists, they do not avoid the edge even between high contrasting habitats, but they do show a gradual decline in the occurrences. If we do rough calculation, suppose only for the Sholakili bird, you'll see that the 2/3 of the total area of, so if the plantations is also counted as the increase in their habitat, you see that there's an increase in 2/3 of the probable area of their distribution. That would mean that the numbers of Sholakili has increased 1.33 times more than the original population before the plantations came over. So the other thing that to note over here is how grassland has decreased. 60% of its original habitat has decreased, as everyone knows, because of the plantation. But that also means that the grassland specialist, the Nilgiri pipit's habitat is also decreasing. And as you can see, they are not a very generalist species. They are not also found in other habitats. They're very particular about their grasslands. They are not found in tea plantations. They are not found in agriculture area. So that would mean that that the threat to this bird is increasing. And then the other thing that we noticed was the general species increasing in open habitat, and that makes something called super tramp strategy, which is like, take all the habitats available. I mean, move into all the habitats available. But that brings a problem again to the grassland species, which are already less in numbers in their grassland, but even in open habitat, they have competition from these generalist species. So, in conclusion, there are several way ahead to this. We either remove the plantation and convert entirely all of that into the original habitat, and that would bring back, or that would get Nilgiri pipit some respite, and it might increase in number. Or what we do is let it get converted, and we already know that plantations have these forest birds, these threatened forest birds in it, but then the Nilgiri pipit numbers would reduce very much. But cutting of forest would also means that the current habitat of these forest birds would also reduce. So this Sophie's choice, the forest department is having like what to do. I mean, yeah, they'll have to decide on that. So yeah, that's the end of my thing. I'll have to acknowledge the first 3 lines are the co-authors with whom I published the paper. I mean, it's in preprint right now. We're trying to publish it. Then the second the entire second paragraph is the names of the interns that work with me, which also includes a lot of people who are coordinating and organizing this this event. And I would thank Vishnu for giving me the opportunity to come over here, but also to help me out in the field work and stuff like that, and other people and the funding agencies. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jobin, for your wonderful presentation. And you have presented your experience, past experience in the Shola Sky Islands and in the grasslands. Okay, now you can have questions.
Robin, I was wondering whether we looked at the gill structure in the forest ecosystem, the natural ecosystem, in this, in the modified plantations. Are they look similar, or the composition, different gills? Yeah, how that?
So you're talking about the entire bird community and their gills, or? Yeah, it was not. I mean, I would have loved to do. I would have, for my PhD, I would have loved to take the entire bird community and studied them. But basically, like I said, it's an intense work, and bird species requires you to be attuned to their songs, how they look, and stuff like that. So it wasn't possible for us to do the entire bird community, but we did look at major gills over here, the frugivorous, insectivorous, canopy, understory. I mean, basically, we couldn't look at canopy as well, because again, yeah.
You have looked into the resident birds, isn't it?
Yeah, we
Not
did.
the migrants.
No, we didn't.
Lot of migrants, especially warblers reach in the Shola.
No, we haven't looked at it. But in the lab, there are other people who have done that. So this is like one part of this. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Satyan, a bird enthusiast. So such a wonderful presentation. So you mentioned around 10, 15 birds, but I couldn't see one bird. It's an elusive Western Ghats endemic, Nilgiri thrush. So I want to know about the population or the situation or the distribution of Nilgiri thrush, please.
It was not there in your list.
No, it wasn't in our list. Also, again, because of the other reasons, like I said, it didn't come into the category that we were looking at. When we were sampling, we did find Nilgiri thrush in a lot of areas. We have the numbers, like in Avalanche and all. They were near the what is it called, the Tamil Nadu Forest Rest House. They used to come in early in the morning. It was such a sight to just wake up and see Nilgiri thrush right outside your window. But we have the numbers, we have the data. We haven't looked into it, and I don't think just because we have the presence absence data, we can give you a proper number. But maybe.
And it is not a high altitude specialist. Has seen it in Tataikad, 40 meters from the sea level.
Even in Calicut City.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask whether the sampling was done only in one particular season, or was it across seasons in each of these plots, or you did manage to do only in a particular season in one plot?
No. So you see, you're asking the season of
Whether
survey.
the seasonal variations have been accounted for in this.
So that was the reason why we also took these birds, and also the reason why we did playback to reduce the seasonal variation that you're talking about. No, we sampled across the year, but yeah, in one particular plot, we never. I mean, we finished it in one season and we came out. So that was the.
Just a connected question. Would you say from your study that the breeding range of the forest birds have increased, or is it only a dispersal which is happening to those adjacent habitats? Did you see nests of these birds in the modified habitats, the invasion?
So that's the thing. like I think we discussed, finding nest is something that you have to have a practice for. It was only in the later years that we started we did look for nests every time, but we were not finding it. And then suddenly we realized, oh, nest is found only in these regions. And then suddenly we're finding it everywhere. So that was how it happened. There are nests in field stations and stuff like that, which is like slightly modified. Or next to the, so these are Sholakili nests that I'm talking about. But in plantations, I am not sure if people have, or at least after my survey was done. Talking about the, yeah, so that's the breeding part, yeah.
I'm Shanta Manohar from Bangalore. I have a question to ask, since you are into landscaping also. What is the impact of the exotic vegetation on the bird populations and where have to? Around also we have a lot of trees which are not native to the region. What is the impact? Have you made any study on this?
Sir, I think the larger question that you're asking, we were just doing a tiny bit of it. In particular area, impact of non-native vegetation on the birds that the study that I just presented. I think it requires more of a meta-analysis where we look at a lot of other studies, combine them, and probably be able to give you the answer. But yeah,
Yeah. Hi, Jobin. It was a nice presentation. So I was wondering, like the Nilgiri pipits, they are found both on both sides of the Western Ghats, right? There is a Palghat gap between it. So how do they, are they moving around from the peaks to peaks? Like are they migrating, or some kind of movement is there? If it is there, like what is your comment on the shrinking of, I suppose, the shrinking of grasslands and their populations?
I suppose in Vishnu's paper, he was talking about, I think he showed the graph as well, where you see genetic differentiation between the species that are found on both sides of Palakkad Gap. And he did find some difference in Nilgiri pipit's genetic structure. But I don't think it was enough to call it two different species. I'm pretty sure they're now not moving between the peaks because of their low dispersal ranges. Yeah, what was the next question? The other question?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I don't think they're moving between the peaks.
And I was thinking about the methodology also, like the detection probability. You talked about streams nearby and winds. I'm sure there is more fog, so visibility is also low. How did you quantify it, or?
Yeah, we did. So we did. So fog, we had these categorical variables. The sunny, cloudy, foggy, and then stream. We took distance from the nearest stream. So those are all involved in the model. I haven't shown a lot of calculation analysis.
Yes. So you did visit the sampling area multiple times, but sampled only 4 times.
No, we visited at least 4 times to the sampling area and surveyed then. But vegetation was done only once. But vegetation was done like in the 4 days probably. But yeah, it was done.
Okay, thank you.
So now, anybody want to ask any question to Vishnu or Pankaj? That also will be permitted. No? We have 10 more minutes to go. So, yes, please. You mic.
First of all, my name is Ursula. I come from Germany, but I live in Norway. So first of all, congratulations on this amazing session. I'm learning so much as an outsider. Since you've come together from so many different areas of India and also concerned about these topics, I wonder, since Vishnu was saying, what could we actually do? We're studying these, but what do you think needs to be the political changes. We talked about land use restrictions, so I would like to start the discussion about that maybe. Since I'm from another context and we're thinking about similar questions in very other biogeographical regions.
Yeah. Anybody want to respond that? What she was asking. Vishnu.
Thank you, Ursula. This is a more pertinent question that we are trying to ask from this kind of events, that we need more collaborative work between scientists, ecologists, politicians, bureaucrats, when we say those who are implementing the laws. So there only we can find out more space for conservation, or what those kind of dialogues will come up. So the whole idea of festival itself is like we coming up from different backgrounds. Like there's a bird watchers there, ornithology, researchers, and we have also the policymakers coming up and talking and discussing this. Then only we can take it up into a different level. So ultimately, when you're looking at the challenges faced by the species that we are talking about, many people have raised concern about the potential threat to habitat. That is something we have to do as a collective force. That's what I'm emphasizing on that again and again, that we have to do that, and we have to find ways to influence the decisions and policies that can come more favoring the protection of these ecosystems. So this Jobin study is very significant, because that has actually got a dilemma into that. Like when you're talking about Sholagili as an endemic species into a Shola grassland mosaic, and suddenly it's an invasive plant coming in, and the species is able to find more numbers or maybe equal numbers in a modified ecosystem. In one way, this is benefiting the species that of concern. At the same time, this is detrimental to the Nilgiri pipit, which was again existing in the same complex. So one species is benefiting, the other one is species. So the question is like, okay, because of this reason we can maintain all the eucalyptus in the grassland? No. So then we have to look at, see what was the original ecosystem which was existing in that landscape, and to take a policy that we need to remain what was there in the past to some extent. That could be the one way to look at it. Another way to look at, like, okay, looking at from an evolutionary time scale, that these species turnovers are happening across time and periods, across the continents. Plants are also moving through the ocean, and in different levels, and colonizing in other lands of multiple times. Maybe the Pankaj talking about expansion and contraction of species ranges across the maybe 120 years. So that's a different question. But looking at the current circumstances, if we want to the range of the particular species are restricted, we are looking at protecting that. Seems like our role. Then we have to look for a very good strategy to protect it, looking at the removal of exotics from the wildlife habitat. That's what I think.
Okay. With regard to the mentioning about from our German friend, when we mention about the climatic region, we usually use alpine. That is from your area, Alps, alpine, the higher mountains. I had been to Bavarian Alps in Germany, top, that snowing area. Okay, then see, now we had 3 presentations, wonderful presentations, really. We learnt a lot, but still we can ask many questions, And with regard to some of the controversial, one more question, to whom? To me or?
General question.
General question, okay.
Yeah.
Generalist and specialist you was mentioning, Okay.
So I wanted to ask about in terms of actions. So basically there needs to be policy change and everything.
Okay.
But when it comes to, let's say, there are different habitat distraction and stuff like that.
Yes.
When we think about intention, it's mostly about money, because they generate a lot of money.
Yes. Sure.
So how can we make people understand, like, or is there a way to bridge the gap between money and keeping the natural habitat?
It is very difficult. Okay, that is very difficult. That is a question being asked by the army people. Two army people ask questions, asking the same question. Yes, I will try to answer it. See, it is very controversial. In the high altitude, in the sky islands, was it a shola covered all the hills, and later the grasslands invaded, or it was grassland everywhere, and shola started developing, and it is a mosaic now. This question was being asked. And there were proponents for both. It was shola first, then secondarily the grassland came. And some people are telling that it was grassland everywhere, then shola invaded, something like that. But one thing is clear, and whether this invasion of the grassland is with the invasion of the human beings, that is another question being asked. I'll tell you, we are looking at it during our lifetime, 10 or 15 years, and we don't know what happened 100 years back, 150 years back. I will tell you one thing. Fire played a role in the invasion of the grassland or whatever it is, or where the islands of the sholas are formed. And you can see that the fringes, some kind of strobilanthus will be coming, which are fire hardy. Only the fire hardy strobilanthus you can see around. If the fire comes and stops there on the fringe of the shola, and the thermodynamics, that thing, it is round, why it is only round, why it is not this shape, and all the sholas will be having more or even round shape. At least at the border they will be having that shape. And there are certain thermodynamic theories about it, how fire come and it being stopped. And certain species of Kurinyi. And now in many places another invasive plant, that is that Eupatorium glandulosus, also stopping the fire from invading into the. And wherever it is opened because of some animal path also, fires try to invade into the shola and they start burning. And many of the sholas, they will burn as such, because there are oily content in almost all the plants. Okay, so that happened many a times. When I read one of the writings in 1872, none other than John Daniel Munro, who purchased 1,37,000 acres of land in Munnar for making the tea plantations and all. He mentioned about the frequent fire invasion into that area made by the local tribes, Muduans. And he has written that they are destroying the entire landscape by putting fire, and they are hunting also, not hunting bison, but hunting tar. That also he has mentioned. So something should be done. This area may be very good for some kind of plantation. That was in 1872 or so. 1877, what we are seeing that he purchased 1,37,000 acres of land from the local Raja for paying 5,000 rupees, and after paying some 3,000 rupees per annum rent. Then he started converting it. That is what we are seeing in Munnar now, the Kandandevan Hill Produce Company. So then he was mentioning about the fire invasion and all. When we look into these species, especially the both shola species and the grassland species, we will have to look into. Some of the shola species, they are specialists of sholas only. Some birds also. For example, this shortwing and all, you might have seen how they make the nest from the mosses of the tree. They are that cushioned nests are being made. So there are some, without that they cannot make the nest, on the fringes or for inside the shola also. I have seen the shortwings nest. Okay. And then take another example, the strobilanthus. Many strobilanthus are grassland species. For example, our gregarious flowering Kurinyi, Nila Kurinyi, that is Strobilanthus kuthiana. It is never seen inside the shola, but only in the grasslands. Strobilanthus sessilis recently flowered in Coorg and in Udiki also last year. That is also a grassland specialist. But more than 25 species are shola specialists. All the tree Kurinyis. They call it Chola Kurinyi and grassland Kurinyis. This Chola Kurinyi is many species. Let it be gracilis, Strobilanthus gracilis, or Strobilanthus eurydice. All these species are tree-like, and they are inside the shola only, never found outside the shola in the grassland. And many of them are in the fringes. They are fire hardy. So this kind of a dynamic development, that was there. We don't know what was it actually. So I think it was a mosaic. There were ups and downs. And I have seen a photograph of Iravikulam taken by the Britishers those days in maybe in the first part of 1900s, 1910 or so. And we have compared. Nothing changed actually. The shola distribution and all. The Anamudi part is shown in that, So it was more or less as such. But one thing, during the last many years, fire invasion is not that much because of the added, adequate, firefighting strategies by the forest department. They are always talking about some early burning. Some place it is being done. But formerly, the entire grassland used to be burnt. And it may be stopping many of the species coming up. But it will be having its own dynamic, its own impact. Because C3, C4 plant distribution and the fire hardy species coming, whether it is palatable or not. And we are always concentrating to the charismatic species, Nilgiri tar, elephant, tiger, and its prey. What about the children of the lesser god, the amphibians? The other reptiles? I have seen charred bodies of many amphibians and reptiles after a fire in the grasslands. Okay, so they are also specialists. Many of them cannot, they are seen only in the grasslands, many of them in the sholas. So that fire is having an impact on them also. So still that controversy is going on. Recently there was a meeting in Trivandrum. There, the tribes and other, they are also putting their opinion. They were telling that there is no fire in the forest, though something is right. Because of man and animal conflict. Man and animal conflict are increasing because of no fire. The forest department is very, particular about the fire, and because of no fire, the man-animal conflict is increasing. Okay, one side it is true, because of not burning, the visibility is less, because of the bushes and trees coming. So the people could not spot the animal in advance. That is why more encounters. That part we can admit. And they are telling that fire is a must for the forest. So there is a controversy going on. And another thing, this plantation and money, and so that was actually started in the Nilgiris, In 1830s itself, they started introducing eucalyptus and black wattle because they cut down the shola. Shola was not regenerating. There was a problem for the, firewood. So they started invading from the other alpine climate. That was in Australia. It was part of their colony. Okay, in 1830s, 40s itself, they started introducing. There are records how they brought the first set of eucalyptus, how many they planted, and about the black wattle also. Pine mainly came in the Palani region. Palani means nothing to do with the Palani, but Kodaikanal region. They introduced many species. There are records. 1960s itself, they started introducing, But now what happened? We were protesting because in Kerala part of Munnar, 1980s, because there were 5 crore rupees by World Bank to afforest the wastelands. In Kerala, there were no wastelands. So they designated the grasslands as wastelands and they started planting black wattle. Till then, there was no much black wattle in Kerala region. Then we were protesting. In 88, I have even written an article in Madhurubhumi. Munnaril in Neelakurinji Pukilla. There won't be any blooming of Neelakurinji in Munnar because of the grassland invasion by black wattle. Then, after that, Kodaikanal, it was almost all the grasslands they were covered. And some people, some enthusiasts, they approached the High Court. The Madura bench of Madras High Court, there is a clear verdict that within a particular time span, they will have to clear all the eucalyptus and this black wattle and restore the original habitat. It is there. They are practicing it there. And there was a committee by Kerala Forest Department also. Myself and Namir, we were members in that committee, and we studied all this area and what should be done with even the teak plantation in forest area. That should be converted. That should be restored. How eco-restoration can be done in the plantations. We were studying. We have given the report. Okay. So Madras High Court has this verdict, and they are trying their very level best. And their Nilgiri, they have proceeded so far, and many area they have already converted, and it's a very difficult task. This tussock grass, it is not easy to come up. Other kind of grass, whether it is palatable or not, they are not bothered, but there should be some grass tussocks that only can bind the soil together. It is high rainfall area, and they are trying their level best. Some 40 hectares we have already converted that is in Pambad and Shola on an experimental basis, and above Marayur, that forest area, that black wattle area also being converted. Experiments are going on. So that may happen. The grasslands may be restored to some extent. That will take time. See, 40 years back we were fighting, and just some years back only, when we were writing the Pambad and Shola management plan, the motto, restore the original habitat. habitat should be restored. That is the motto of the management plan now. Now they understood that this has created a lot of trouble and we will have to restore the original habitats. Even in the Shola, the black wattle has been invaded. So now they are cutting it out. On the way to Silent Valley, I don't know whether the early people who started going there immediately after the declaration of the National Park, Pandandod was entirely, it was eucalypt plantations. But now they have converted. Now the evergreen forests are coming again. So such conversions are happening, and they were asking what we will do. It will take time. Now, in 2017, the government has taken a decision in Kerala, at least. The other part is happening because of the Madras High Court Madura bench verdict. They are trying with level best. In Kerala, there is a decision by the government that no more planting eucalyptus and wattle or acacia. Acacia auriculoformis is also being planted in the forest. It is very invasive. Okay, eucalyptus is a lesser evil because it won't invade. It won't go to the forest area. It will be there where after cutting, coppicing is the only problem. Then still you can destroy it because Silent Valley we have done, Pandandod area. Okay, there is a decision by the government that no more planting of eucalyptus and acacia inside the in the government land, means forest. So whatever are there, you will have to restore it into the natural habitat within a time span. So Forest Department is having its own working plan and management plan, and all the working plan and management plan, now one module is restoration. So they are doing it. They have started already. Now, okay. So we need not worry that much, but still we will have to worry because many other things are happening. You are talking about Munnar, the grasslands, how the eucalyptus can be cut, how the wattle is cut. What are you going to do with the tea plantation there, which is occupying some 57,000 acres? That is actually restored to the Tata plantation, you know. The entire land was taken by the Kerala government in 1971 by a legislation, and after that there was a land board award. For there they returned 57,000 acres to the Tata, including the eucalyptus plantations and the tea plantations. It is there. And the rest we have taken, that is why we have the Irivikulam National Park. And another 22,253 acres, that is the Mangulam Reserve area. Okay, so restoration is happening, but whatever gone. The tea plantation, nobody is mentioning anything. Nobody is going to restore the replantation. That it is not only with the Tata, Harrison Malam plantation, AVT plantation, all these plantations are there around. Okay, so we are not mentioning, and there are interspersed lands. And there are some restrictions in using the interspersed land and all. It should be kept as such. That is what written in the working plan and all. Okay, so we are trying our level best, and don't think that all the species has gone extinct. Many of the grassland species have gone extinct. Because of one example mentioned was Vanda Whitey. Vanda Whitey, it was recorded by Robert White in 1830s or 40s, but after that it was not seen whether Suprabha has gone or not. Actually, they are the people who rediscovered it from Nilgiri, and they were having a specimen. I have a photograph of that only. This Vanda Whitey and many other species that they rediscovered. And there were many other rediscoveries. For example, Brachycorus whitey, an orchid which was lost for 100 years. That was rediscovered from the Munnar Rajamalai area. So that is happening. All are not lost, but we should be very careful about, because these are the sky islands and this climate variation. That is the main theme, you know. Climate change is there. Climate change, how it is going to affect, already Munnar 2-degree temperature increase is there, and whatever activity now going on around there, it is becoming an urbanized area, and the climate will go up. Already it happened in Ooty, and now people are thronging to the lesser known area, Munnar area, after 90s, that happening. So we are not that sure about that it will be preserved as such. But we will have to fight. We will have to tell people. Just like he was mentioning, you know, we will have to teach the policy makers. Such a policy change should be there. One thing I have already told you, know, and I will tell you, it is because of the Chief Minister's decision. They decided that no more planting in government land, eucalyptus and acacia, and whatever you have planted, you will have to restore. It was taken, the decision was taken by Chief Minister, CM. I can vouch it, how it happened, I know. I was there with it. Sukadamari teacher and myself, we went to the Chief Minister and gave a memorandum. But the memorandum, the main part was actually about what is happening in the high altitude, the sky islands, Munnar, how land grabbing, how people are getting it, destroying the entire area. But last 2 paragraphs were actually about the eucalyptus plantation and acacia plantation in the forest. But he asked only one, after reading it, is it still happening? Yes, it is happening. Then I will stop it. Within 2 weeks, they brought out the order that no more planting. So that happens. Policy has been changed because of that order. That policy change was because of the decision from the politician, the chief politician, the chief minister. So we can influence. We have done it already. So for that, what should be the, because ours is a democratic, so there are faults in democracy. So what we will have to do with the faults in democracy? More democracy. We should be more democratic. Then ultimately success will be ours. So for that, such gatherings like scientists, common people, policy makers, because we have invited the policy makers also. And some of them were speaking very nicely, about the ecosystem, about the survival of this thing. And now we know after Mundakai and all these landslides, what is happening. Eviction is happening. That is not being done by the forest department or revenue department. That is being done by nature itself. Many parts are being evicted. Go, people go away. This should be for the, it should be left as such. So that is happening. But we will have to teach the politicians also, the policy makers, everybody. Okay, so that is why we conduct such seminars. There should be scientific papers and that deliberations. And there should be opinion from the common people. There should be education of the common people. That also we will have to have done. We have doing it for the past many years. So there were changes. There were changes. Don't think that we were just seeking out and nothing is happening. No, something are happening. Something, but don't think that whatever we say they will obey. No, it is very difficult because that conflict is there. Whether development, whether Tarangapada is needed or not, that problem is there, but still it is happening. Immediately after that, the landslide which killed nearly 300, 400 people, then Tarangapada came. That is the decision by the policy makers and that economic activity. It is economic activity. So that will go on. Where it should be balanced, we can also decide. This is a democratic country. So we should be very aware. First, we should be aware what is happening. See, because of these deliberations, we are somewhat aware now what is happening there in the altitude. So such kind of activities should be there. And I thank the organizers for organizing such a wonderful gathering. We all are there. He has come from Qatar, Saju, and many people from Bangalore. They were asking questions. Okay, so nice. So nice, and we will have to strengthen their arms and their activities, Vishnu and gang. Okay, so Vishnu, so I will have to thank you for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to be with you, and I have still time. I have a message now from Ethiopian Airlines. My flight has been rescheduled. It is only after 1:25 it will the takeoff. Still I have time to go, So I could not cancel the ticket. So they are sending result that my flight has been rescheduled from Mumbai to Addis Ababa. I will have to get into that immediately. Okay. So that was aborted because there was a problem in Tanzania. So this tour, they were not encouraging us. Some 1,000 people were killed after the elections. So otherwise I should have been tomorrow in Serengeti. Okay. That happened. So this opportunity, great. And all of us get that opportunity to hear the people who really worked in the Shola and all, or youngsters. We are very happy to see the youngsters working in the field and the diversified field, dragonflies, reptiles, and all other things. And now he has shifted to this carbon, soil carbon, left all the animals and birds, I think. So, but that is also important. That's also very important with regard to the climate change and all. So thank you very much, all the participants. Thank you very much for all those who have presented the wonderful papers and all those who interacted. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for wonderfully chairing the session. I invite everybody for a group photo as the session is winding up. Thank you very much.